stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First, we'd like to administer the oath of office to Lori Bernard. Lori, if you could come up front, and we'll have Nancy do the oath with you.
Having been elected as Alderperson District 3
Having been elected Alderperson District 3
for the City of Hudson, Wisconsin,
for the City of Hudson, Wisconsin,
swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties
and will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties
of said office to the best of my ability.
of said office to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Okay, next we've got some new police patrol officers to swear in, and Chief Jensen, you want to come up and do the duties for that?
Yes, sir, I would.
We've got, well, you can introduce Judge Garrity.
Judge Garrity is going to come in and do the oath of office. Tracy Haynes, come forward. Yes.
I, Tracy Haynes, having been appointed as patrol officer
Having been appointed as a patrol officer
for the City of Hudson, Wisconsin,
for the City of Hudson, Wisconsin,
swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
swear to support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully and impartially
will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties of said office
discharge the duties of said office
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank
Good
you.
job.
This is a little more dangerous than the... That's why I'm not doing it. We can just get it in one hole. That's good enough, I think. Yeah, if there's one there. There we go. All
Thank
right.
you.
Congratulations. All right. John Warden, come forward.
Congratulations.
Officer Warden, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay, would you raise your right hand, please? I, John Warden,
I, John Warden,
having been appointed as patrol officer
having been appointed as a patrol officer
for the City of Hudson, Wisconsin,
for the City of Hudson, Wisconsin,
swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully and impartially
and will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties of said office
discharge the duties of said office
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
She's also a doctor, so she can take care of it.
That's right. That's right.
John comes from Amory PD, where he's worked there for several years. Tracy has worked for Amory also, but she's been on our Castle Call part-time officers since 2004. So we're very proud and honored to have these two officers, and they begin first thing tomorrow morning. All right. Thank you.
Don't forget, we have to
Okay. Okay, we need to do roll call.
Mayor
Madam
Knudsen?
Clerk, here.
District 1 Morset. Here. 2 Brokaw. Here. 3 Bernard. Here. 4 Wyland.
Here.
5 O'Malley.
Here.
6 Burchell.
Here.
Thank you. At this time, we take comments and suggestions from citizens present. If you'd like to speak to any item that isn't on the agenda but could be on a future agenda, this is your time. Please come forward and give us your name. And you have the podium. It seems there is no one who wishes to speak. Let's move on to consent agenda items. I'd like to note first that we had not, during our Finance Committee, finished consideration of the claims, so that'll need to be removed from the consent agenda. Will you read the list of consent items, please?
To approve the regular meeting minutes of April 7th, 2008, and the organizational meeting minutes of April 15th, 2008. To schedule a public hearing for 6:55 p.m. on May 19th, 2008, to consider amending the zoning code to permit boarding houses in industrial districts through the conditional use process and the possible creation of Section 255-41G in Hudson Municipal Code. To approve the 2008 schedule of concerts in Lakefront Park as submitted, to place on file the quarterly reports of the Fire Department, Building Inspector, and Finance Officer, and the Public Utility Commission minutes of April 8th, 2008. That is all.
I would like to ask for A1 to remove from the consent agenda and just outlined so that it's clear what that hearing is about.
Move for approval on the rest of the consent agenda.
Is there a second? Second. Roll call. Well, yeah. Roll call vote.
Morset?
Yes.
O'Malley?
Yes.
Wyland?
Yes.
Burchell?
Yes.
Bernard?
Yes.
Brokaw?
Yes.
Consent agenda items are approved. Let's see. That's going to move us to reports of standing committees. Plan Commission, item A1 was removed from the agenda. I'd like to point out that Denny Darnold asked to be excused tonight. He would probably normally speak to this issue. I'll tell you what I know about it. We have the gentleman here who's making the application. And I guess we could let you tell what you're about. And the idea here is to schedule a public meeting on this.
Right.
Okay.
I thought it would be good to have just.
Would you like to hear from him?
Yep.
Could you give us about a 2-minute, just kind of executive overview? Come up to introduce yourself. And
it's just noticed as public hearing, to schedule a public hearing.
I believe there's a sheet that outlines what we're intending to do in your packet. My name is Tom Hennis. I am the Executive Director of Open Door Rescue Mission. What we are intending to open is a emergency shelter as well as a long-term residential rehab for alcohol and drug abuse. And our target clients are women and women with children. There is a need in our community for that because in our areas we have facilities for men. As you know, the Exodus House just went in, and there's Kinnick Falls down in River Falls. And in speaking with Dwana Bremer at Grace Place, she's turning away clients that we need to help address. It'll be a long-term residential facility. We're actually looking at the Bear Buddies building on Beaudry Street, the use of that facility.
Okay, thank you.
So then I would like, based on that, I'd like to make a motion that we schedule a hearing for 6:55 on May 19th.
Is there a second? Second? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. We'll schedule a public hearing for that date and time. Thank you. Next item, Finance Committee applications for operators' licenses.
Mr. Mayor, I recuse myself from number 3.
Mr. Morissette is recused. There's a list before you of the operators' licenses. The Finance Committee recommends approval. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. The The applications for operators' licenses are approved. The next item is the application by the Softball Association for a beer license for their Grandview Park concession. It's an annual request of theirs. Finance Committee recommends approval. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Mr. Mayor, I have to recuse myself.
And Mr. Birchall is recused. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. The application of the Softball Association is approved. Consider additional patrol officer position for the police department. The Finance Committee voted to approve this. I think I'll ask for a motion here, and then in discussion we'll have the chief come up and talk about it a little bit more if there are questions for him.
I'll move for approval on committee's recommendation.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second.
Can we, for
excuse me,
everybody
just a second.
Sorry.
What I'm going to do is, Chief, if you'd come up there and be ready to answer questions, I'm going to let Mr. Morissette have the floor first, followed by the seconder, and then anyone else. Ask you each to speak once, and we'll let everyone else speak before you speak a second time. Go ahead. You have the floor.
My question was regarding to the funding. I was a little confused at the finance. Exactly, you have it all budgeted, but you do not have it operationally budgeted through the upcoming years. Is that correct?
Back in the beginning of the year, we had a leftover $56,000 in the police budget from 2007 because we hadn't filled positions and there was leftover funds. Those are a one-time fund. It's not like I would have those left over in 2008 or 2009. So when we're looking at this position, we should look at the funding for 2008 and for 2009. Committee came to the conclusion that they would use the $56,000 towards the $44,000 it would take to employ this person through 2008, and then set aside funds in the 2009 levy for the additional.
Okay, so you are levying for future.
Within our levy limit, yes.
Okay.
Betty, could I ask you?
Well, pardon me here for a second. Do you have anything else?
Nope.
Lori, any questions? Okay, Scott.
Betty, you're going to be setting aside approximately $80,000 then?
Correct.
In the 2009 budget, and since we don't have a slush fund or whatever amount of $80,000, is it your intention then to take that from some other department, or are you going to take it from additional revenues from the office park, or what's your plan?
Well, with the closure of the TIF district, we'll get an additional $380,000 approximately in taxes next year over what we have this year. At this point, it would be taking $80,000 from the $380,000 and leaving $300,000 to be spread among the other departments. However, we're still at the 2007 levels, so that $300,000 is going to go pretty quickly because we're going to have energy costs, we're going to have inflationary costs, we're going to have other things that the city is going to have to address. So I would say it's going to be a combination of both when you get down to the budget process.
So the 380 that you and I discussed earlier today, that's essentially gone then. I mean, that's going to be used. It's allocated, in your mind at least, for various.
No, not in my mind. It isn't at all. It's up to council. I mean, council can come in and just say we're going to levy $80,000 and period. That's it. We're going to do with what we have. We have the availability of $380,000 next year in additional taxes. Well,
I understand. And the reason I bring it up is that in various conversations with different people, it seems to me that $380,000 has been spent several times over in various people's minds. You know, there's no action been taken on this at all. And I think maybe we ought to keep a scoreboard of some kind so we know really where the $380,000 is going to go.
I think part of my monthly financial will be is if council starts looking at those funds, just to keep it in front of them exactly where those funds are. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Correct. Anything further, Scott? No? Anyone else have any comments, questions?
Yeah,
yes.
In the Finance Committee, the motion we approved, I think, I don't know if Betty was taking notes, was what it said we will allocate this from the TIF district next year. So it was very specific about where that, and that's what's on the table here for the recommendation. although I don't know if it would help to read back the financial, what we decided in the Finance Committee, to read back the motion. We don't normally see the motion come forward, just the fact that it's been approved. So to answer your question, that's the motion we approved.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Are we ready for a motion? Or we have a motion and a second already. We're in discussion. If there's no further discussion, I think we're ready for a vote. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say no. Motion carries. Next item is request for expenditures for equipment and technology for the police department. The Finance Committee discussed this and recommends approval. I would like to point out that on the second page of your issue sheet, there were two groupings here, and what we approved at Finance is what is below the gray bar on this issue sheet. So that is a total of equipment that includes 3 new mobile data computers. These are laptop computers in the squad cars, and upgrading our existing 2 mobile data computers so that we would have a total of 5. The reason that is separated from the second line 5 is that these 3 new are coming through a grant that was secured from the state in conjunction with St. Croix County Sheriff Department.
I'll move for approval on committee recommendation.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Do you have any discussion?
So the top part, yes, I do, Mr. Mayor. Is the top part, then that's some wrong math up there. I got a different total unless I'm reading something wrong. That has nothing to do with the numbers down below the gray line? Because you've got 54,000 on top.
15,000 is from a grant, right?
The 15,000 was covered by the
Okay, so
grant.
you're including the 13. All right.
Numbers on top are also included below.
So you'll see it duplicated. That top was really designed to be sort of a Plan B request, most of which has already been paid for through grants and current budget. And that was a lesser sum, a smaller equipment list. The main thrust of this is technology upgrades, training aids so that we upgrade our training technology and improve the efficiency and effectiveness of our current patrol officers. We have a motion and a second. Do you have any further questions? You have the floor. Who seconded the motion?
I did.
You did. Do you have any questions?
As far as the funding down below, one of the things we talked about in finance is that the 2008 bonding for $22,282, $36,000 of it was already allocated to the police department. So that's already part of the bonding request. And the, sorry, I recycled mine. The fund balance carryover funding piece of it, I don't know if Betty wants to comment on that, just so you know where the funding's coming from.
Because these are all different items and not adopted in our original budget, I'm just explaining to council tonight we can move towards this direction, but we will have to come with a budget amendment at next council meeting. So what was proposed tonight is that the $18,000 would be coming from the grants. $27,386 would come from the budget the fund balance of 2007. We budgeted $145,000 in the interest. And I was able to obtain good interest rates last year and had a lot more interest earnings that we could actually utilize and weren't planning on. So that's where that would be coming from. The $22,282 is a change in the bonding, so we would be looking at that in the budget amendment too.
Anyone who hasn't spoken, Scott, you have the floor.
Yes, I do. Thank you. Under what you just said, Betty, my understanding is that we should actually not be voting on purchase of this equipment, but rather authorizing you to come forward with a budget amendment under our bonding, correct?
Correct.
So we may want to amend our motion in a second.
Conditional? On condition?
That
Have the same
what we're doing is authorizing Betty to take the next step, because we
Well,
Put a
you could say
condition.
conditional on approval of a budget amendment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
That's
the
fine. That's
procedure
fine.
you need to go through.
That's fine with the second.
Okay.
Okay, so we're amending the motion to say it's conditional on approval
Approval
of
of a budget amendment.
budget amendment. Everyone's clear on that, okay with both. Okay, anyone else who hasn't spoken yet have questions? Are we ready to vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Next item, consider pre-development agreement for redevelopment proposal, analysis and review for financial assistance. This deals with the River City Center development. They've been requesting that we investigate things like tax increment financing, some other things. There are staff costs involved in that. Before we wanted to move forward with that, we want to have a agreement with them. We'll need them to put some money down. I believe we'll be asking for a $10,000 deposit. Finance Committee suggested approval. What's your pleasure?
Move to approve.
We have
Second.
a motion and second. Is there any discussion? Scott?
I have read this document. It is basically boilerplate that is used by other cities. It's a slam dunk deal. We are protected in every way possible, and I don't think that there's anything to fear from our engagement with GCI in this agreement.
Anyone else have any comments or questions about this item? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Sorry, I was too quick on the trigger for you there.
Just be noted that we will be, before execution, filling in the...
Thank you.
Sure.
Yes, thank you. That's all I was going to say.
Okay, Public Works Committee. First item on the Public Works Committee agenda. Well, let me turn it over to you, Scott. Do you want to go through these?
Sure, as soon as I find my paperwork, which is so carefully stowed away. Item number 1 is to authorize our consulting engineers, bonus through BRA, to proceed with plans and specifications for a mill and overlay project on Crestview Boulevard. The recommendation from from Public Works is to approve, because this is already in our bonding, our budget for capital improvements in 2008. And here to explain it is Chuck Schwartz from BRA.
Let's have a motion, if we could, and then we'll do that during discussion. Is that all right, Chuck?
I will move
Have a
that
motion?
we approve the plans to authorize BRA to come up, to proceed with plans and specifications for the Crestview Mill and Overlay project.
I'll second.
And we have a second. Discussion. Chuck, you want to lead off and tell us briefly what this is about?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, just backing up here a little bit, Tom in the Public Works Department has estimated the cost of this mill and overlay project to be approximately $400,000, and it's to mill and overlay Crestview from O'Keefe down to Carmichael. Based on that, what I had indicated to Public Works is, generally speaking, projects run in the 15 to 18% range. This project is a little more streamlined and simpler than that, just from the standpoint that you don't have any utility work and that underground things that require plan or profile type of documents. But on the flip side of that, though, you will have prevailing wages, and you also have, you'll need I highly recommend a detailed traffic control plan, just because of the amount of traffic and the items like that you'll see on this busy road that serves many residents as well as the commercial area adjacent to it. Generally, for a project like this, our design fee is around 7.32%, but because of it's a more simple project, I suggested that we could do it for 85% of that, or a reduced rate. And I think the overall project cost that I think it would come in about somewhere between 12 and 13%. Generally speaking, we do the design fee based on the construction cost, but the construction work is estimated hourly. And I'm cautiously optimistic that I've estimated high on the hourly work. I have a total of 7% in there for that. And once we do the walkthrough with staff and we put together the plans and develop a schedule, if it pleases the council, I could come back with a revised estimate of and a firmer number on what I anticipate those construction costs to be.
Chuck, I have a question. Isn't it from O'Keefe to Hagan Street? Isn't that what we're talking about instead of O'Keefe to Carmichael?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Carmichael to Hagan Street.
Carmichael to Hagan Street,
right.
Excuse me.
Okay,
Thank you for that clarification.
Yep.
Okay, any other discussion on this item? Yes.
I'll ask the question once while we're going through the mill and overlay. I'm not so concerned about this particular road, but making sure you have identified with public utilities and water that everything under the road is passable for the next 10 years or more, so we don't have to dig it up again.
Yes, and I haven't gone through those steps or had many discussions with Tom about that at this point, but it's certainly something as we walk through it we should address and pop open a few manholes. I'm trying to recall when that was. It 91 when that road was improved, somewhere around there. I believe it's so that there's about 15 years.
I'm not a big fan of mill and overlay. I like it. It looks good, but functionally and down the road, are we saving any money if we have to dig it open again? So I just want to make sure we're identifying those needs.
Anyone else with questions? Okay, Scott.
I just would like to address Randy's concern, which is legitimate, but to explain that mill and overlay is absolutely necessary. An asphalt road is good for about 17 years, give or take. And mill and overlay allows us to take care of cracks down to approximately 1.5 inches. With freezing and thawing in the wintertime, cracks will increase. If you don't do mill and overlay, you're going to be doing total road reconstruction in a fairly short manner.
Let me point out that Tom and I talked with Chuck, and we talked about the fact that while this is a big project for us, we do mill and overlay every year. This one doesn't require as much design work really because it's simpler in the design aspect, and yet it's a big project for oversight and some of that. And so, we asked if we could negotiate a slightly better rate. That's where that 85% on the design fee is coming from. So thank you. We appreciate that. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Item 1 is approved to authorize to proceed with plans and specs. Number 2, authorize Bonus Drew to proceed with plans and specs for Hanley Road Sidewalk Project.
The recommendation from Public Works is to approve proceeding with plans and specs, and I will make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next, we have review quotes, approved dates, and award contract for spring and fall leaf collection program. Scott?
Public Works recommends the acceptance of the bid received from River City Disposal. This is the only bid we receive. In fact, it's the only bid we receive every year. River City has done a very acceptable job up to this point. The bid is in the amount of $15,862, and I'd like to emphasize that includes not just this spring but next fall's leaf collection as well. Essentially, anyone who is a resident of Hudson who has leaves or cut grass, can dispose of them for free during 3 weekends, 3 Saturdays, beginning this coming Saturday, April 26th, and the intervening 2 weeks, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, from noon to 7 p.m. The Saturdays are from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the West End Garage. And if you are a recent resident of Hudson, the West End Garage is located by taking 2nd Street, the main street, downtown Hudson, north towards North Hudson. Before you get to Lake Malibu, before you get to the bridge, turn left. There are signs that do point to that left turn, and there are people there on duty to help you take the bags out of your car or truck or trailer and put them in the dumpsters that are located there at the West End Garage. They must be bagged. They must be leaves or grass. Please, no leftover pumpkins from last Halloween, no tree branches or tree stumps that you've been able to unearth, leaves and grass only, and they must be bagged. This is a free service from the city each spring and fall. As always, as has been going on for over a decade, any resident of the 5th District, which I represent, who cannot get there with their bags can call me or email me, and my friends and I will pick that up for free, as we've done for many years. Also, there is a special price on those leaf bags that you want to leave on your boulevard. Call Veolia, call Veolia, and that phone number will be on a postcard you will be receiving in a matter of days. They will pick up your leaf bag for you from your boulevard at the time that you arrange, and the price will be reduced from the usual $1.50 to only $1 during this program that spans Saturday, April 26th, and 2 successive Saturdays with the intervening Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Thank you. Public Works Committee recommended approval. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next is the 2008 Mill and Overlay Project. This is done in-house. Tom will be available to answer questions on this.
Recommendation from Public Works is that we approve the street proposal for 2008 Mill and Overlay, the list of streets that Tom's about to go over to explain to all of us, and the attendant cost for each one. This has already been provided for in our 2008 budget. Tom, would you get to the microphone? I'd like to comment before Tom begins to speak that it is the custom of Public Works to combine mill and overlay with curb and gutter and sidewalk work at the same time. Rather than tear up a street twice, we do them consecutively, or concurrently, I should say. So Tom will be talking about both programs, $75,000 budgeted for curb and gutter and sidewalks, and $160,000 for mill and overlay, $235,000 total.
Okay, before you start, let's have a motion on this one.
I'll move that we accept the recommendation of Public Works to approve the proposed 2008 mill and overlay. And may we take the other item at the same time, or would you rather wait?
You have the floor.
That we combine this with the next agenda item, which is curb and gutter and sidewalk.
Second.
And we have a motion and a second. Discussion. Any questions for Tom?
Tom, would you go over the street list so people who are viewing tonight will know?
As far as the mill and overlay project, the two streets we chose were 11th Street South from Wisconsin Street to Cooley Road, and also a Redwood Drive, and that road is off of Hanley. That one is, we're having some stormwater, I got it this time, thanks. Some stormwater issues, and we need to get that road fixed up and address the stormwater issues before that. As far as the curb and the sidewalks, we're planning on doing is we visually inspect the sidewalks per the insurance company. We have a sidewalk inspection log, so some of these sidewalks we try to get through the whole city every year. The sidewalks we'd like to do this year are 6th Street from Oak to Locust, 7th from Wisconsin to River, 8th Street, St. Croix to Vine, 9th Street, Vine to St. Croix, 10th Street, Pitt to Fox. A little bit on Fox Street, Elm Street 1st to 5th, Locust Street 6th to 2nd, Walnut Street 1st to 2nd, Vine Street 2nd to Wisconsin, and a little bit up on Emerald Bend. This is just the bad spots. Mostly where the tree roots have raised it, so there's a trip hazard. As far as curb and gutter, we'd like to do some on Myrtle Street between 2nd and 3rd, 10th Street between Cole and Vine Street, and a little bit of curb and gutter. There was a request from Norlake. There's a safety issue down there, and we're going to install some safety flags. Or actually, they're going to pay for the flags, and we're going to put the proper pedestrian ramps and things in that area. I think that's about it. The estimated cost for the mill and overlay for 11th Street South and Redwood Drive is around $100,000. Curb and gutter for 11th Street South, and the worst spot area is between Wisconsin and Summer Street. estimating that at $67,000. The sidewalks in the sidewalk program, saying around $20,000. The additional curbs projects, that would be on Myrtle and 10th Street, about $26,000, and the pedestrian ramps at $3,000. Between the two of them, that's $216,000, and budget is $235,000. But usually we have some extra costs if we break a sidewalk on either side or if we have other issues. So we're below the budget.
Okay, I'd like to point out then that because this is on our bonding list to be bonded, paid for through bonding, that it'll have to be contingent on approval of the bonding. Any questions for Tom? Yes.
Tom, I question why we're not doing Myrtle Street curb and gutter from 1st to 2nd. There is no curb and gutter on Myrtle Street.
No. We've talked about that last year, a couple of years ago. That would be assessed because it's a.
Is that the same?
It's a brand new project, or I don't know.
Besides that one, Wisconsin Street to Vine Street, no curb and gutter. Is that something that needs to be on a bond? I mean, those are projects, and the washing and the raining are eating at the sides of the pavement, especially on Wisconsin Street, coming down that hill. Well, both of them.
Actually, someday, that Wisconsin Street from 11th to the high school, that's going to be a big project. Right now, we're going to have to clean that storm. There's a storm pond down in that area that we're planning. Hopefully, we could get cleaned out a little bit this summer. The rain just washes all that dirt down in this pond. We're going to have to get some curb and gutter in there soon.
Okay,
yes.
So Wisconsin to Vine or to the high school?
Yes.
Not Vine, but Vine. Okay. Will be a future project. What about between 11th or 1st and 2nd on Myrtle Street?
I guess we certainly could look into that.
It just would make sense to me. You're fixing one, but one doesn't have another. You're just going to wash that road right down.
Well, if I could, the agenda item tonight is for replacement, and what you're talking about would be installing new.
Curb and gutter.
Right. There's no curb and gutter on that 1st to 2nd segment, which is a completely different thing. We need to do an analysis of it. Those kind of improvements are special assessed. I can tell you that Wisconsin Street needs it, but there was a time a few years ago, and I remember it well, when we came close to special assessing, and that's a political process. Right. The public and the property owners along there need to be involved in that, and if you'd like to bring that forward for a future agenda, you can do it, but it's not on the agenda
Just
tonight.
Just the questions.
Yep, good question. Any other discussion on the replacement sidewalk, curb and gutter program for this year?
I will amend my motion to make it contingent upon the bonding process.
Great. Is that okay with the second? Who had the second?
I did. Yes.
You do now?
I do now.
Okay. We've got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Next item is number 6. We've done 4 and 5. Number 6, review bids and award contract for 2008 Carmichael Road Street Light Replacement Project.
Recommendation from Public Works is to accept the bid from B&B Electric, with whom we've done a lot of work in the past. The amount is $24,720, rounding off to the nearest dollar. The city will purchase the light poles from a third party directly. We have anticipated saving quite a bit of money based on quotes we've seen so far. So my motion is to authorize the city staff to purchase the poles directly from a company at the lowest cost to be determined later, but at this time to approve B&B Electric to install the poles at a cost of $24,720.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Can you read the motion back so everyone understands, or can you restate?
I'll restate it. To authorize city staff to purchase poles directly, to go into a bidding process for purchase of the aluminum poles. We are moving from steel to aluminum because the steel poles had been corroding from the inside out, and last year we had 2 of them just plain fall over. So for safety purposes and public convenience, we'll move to aluminum poles, and we are authorizing the expenditure of almost $25,000, $24,720, for B&B Electric to install the poles, that is, to wire them up for us.
Okay. Any discussion?
Yeah, I have a question. So they're going to, will the proposal for the purchase of the poles will come back here for approval then?
Well, the estimated cost for the poles is $53,000, and we will have actual bids on that. But we're telling you up ahead of time. The entire project is about $80,000, and the bonding request is $90,000 for 208, so we should be covered adequately.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? I have one that I've asked that we start to investigate LED lights to save energy. There can be significant energy savings, longer life, so you need to go up in the boom truck less often to change bulbs. Appears the technology is just about there. I understand Kenosha's running a pilot project with some lights. I'd like us to look into that in this process before we spend the $90,000 to put in lights that we wish that we'd gone to the new technology right away. Other comments before we vote, Lee?
Yeah, I assume we're replacing the poles and the wiring, but not the lights themselves.
Well,
or does this include lighting?
Tom, this includes lights.
That's with the lights included.
Oh, okay.
The head and the actual light fixture is included in this.
Okay.
And that's why I hope that we can thoroughly investigate that before we come back with bids and specs. We'll work on that some more. Any other questions on this item? Comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Number 7, consider change order for additional accessories to the aerial lift truck, also known as boom truck.
Recommendation for Public Works is to approve the change order, and we will go over them, the items in a minute. They were left off the original purchase contract, but with the addition of these new items on the change order, we are still within the bonding limit. Dan, would you mind taking the microphone? I'm going to make a motion first that we approve recommendation of Public Works.
Public Works Committee recommended approval. We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. In discussion, let me introduce Dan Ortner as the Chief Mechanic. Is that your title for the Public Works Department? And Dan and Tom gave me a nice tour of their facilities and a lot of the equipment about a week ago. I really appreciated doing some good things there. So you deserve some recognition for that, Dan. Probably don't come and get the spotlight very often. So thank you for that. Any questions for Dan? No questions? Are we ready to proceed with the vote? All in favor? Was that yes? You have a question?
I was just saying that maybe we want to just outline for everybody else here what it is we're adding.
Give us the brief overview here. Okay, the original budget was for budget $130,000 for the boom truck.
Yes. The
Go ahead.
reason for the additions is basically it was a mistake on my part. I failed to put them in the spec sheets when we bid the truck out. It's stuff that it's needed for the truck. It's the cab guards, the bulkhead. It's to keep the trees, the branches from dropping and ruining our truck. I didn't put the toolboxes on. I had originally intended on doing this myself. There's only one of me, and there's just I don't have enough time to do it all. That's why the change order is here.
Well, appreciate your saying that. I don't think you have to take.
No, I was just looking to kind of outline what we're adding, that's all.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask,
So there are supplemental features to the basic truck. You can order the truck without these, but we meant to spec it with these.
Mm-hmm.
And so at this time, because, of course, without these, it came in under what it would have. With the addition, it's going to take it right up about to the very
Yes.
close to
What
the
we
$130,000 that we
expected.
originally
Yes.
expected.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Boom truck accessories are approved. Park Board. First item on the Park Board is review bids and lease agreement and award Lakefront Park concession stand lease. You have an issue sheet before you. The recommendation from the Parks Committee was to recommend entering into a lease agreement with the Giggle Factory, Inc. for concession sales at the bathhouse, with the rent to be based on 5% of the monthly gross sales.
So moved.
We have a motion. We have a second. Scott, do you have any comment?
Only to note that the 5% is an introductory commission rate. We had originally done this at 10%, and with breaking new ground, we felt it only fair to go to 5% for the first year. We'll reassess that after the first year is over.
Pat Casanova is here, Chairman of the Park Board, to answer any further questions. Any other members have questions?
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
This is for Catherine. We're to maintain property damage and fire insurance on the building. Do we have a dollar amount for the value of the building that we want insured, that we've given the company?
I believe it's already insured, isn't that, Nancy? It's already under our...
Right, but the agreement says they will, right?
Public liability.
Yeah, and then if you go to the bottom on page 4,
Yep.
number 6, I understand the building's insured through our policy, but if I'm reading this correct, I believe the person leasing it.
Yeah, property damage and fire insurance.
Yep. Do we have a dollar amount that we want them to pay for that? Or for the
Well, I don't believe we do, but we could make this motion contingent on correcting that or
Whatever's
fulfilling
in
that.
our policy,
Whatever
I would
that's our
imagine.
policy, we can find that number and then we'll proceed.
But is that the intent, is what we want, is the person leasing the building to insure it? Or do we have it insured ourselves? I mean,
I'm sure it's insured.
Right. Well, I think that's a pretty...
Theirs would be, I guess it would probably make the city supplemental to the renters if they put in.
I mean, I think that's something we should check on.
Yeah, we can fine tune that to see what's
I do too. What we have before us says that they'll pay for it. We don't know exactly what they're going to pay or if they're aware of that. But
Right.
what we can approve is this contingent with supplying that information. If that's not acceptable, you're here. So let's, since you're at the lectern here, do you have any comments on that?
No.
No? Okay. Would our applicants like to come up and speak briefly? Is that a surprise to you about having insurance for property damage?
Hi, my name's Felicity Plansky. I'm the owner of the Giggle Factory. This is my associate, Erica Sherrier. And when it was up for bid, the item number, the bid proposal, had not mentioned on number 11 anything about fire insurance. Property, personal, and loss.
Policy, so I'm not sure.
Why don't we just look at that and see if it's worthwhile to just leave it on the city's insurance?
Is it urgent for this to get approved at this meeting? Can this be postponed till our next meeting for approval? When do you anticipate starting?
Well, we would like to open the week of Memorial Weekend. So we were hoping that we would get possession of a key the first week of May, because there's some things that we obviously need to install.
We'll do it next meeting?
The next meeting will be the 5th.
So it would be the first full week in May. Otherwise, I don't know that there's any real cost savings to the city. That's what we need to check out in terms of, I think the city would still want it insured, to be honest. Would want to make sure, take care of the insurance.
That's fine. It was in the agreement, so I just
It was
brought
in the
up.
previous lease, and to be honest,
I just read through the agreement and saw that it was in there.
assuming they provided insurance, but I never check the certificates.
I think, the city's covers the building.
Yeah.
We
That's
do.
my opinion, yeah.
They would need, I think maybe the intent was fire for their own, any equipment and their own property that you put in there.
Alan, we have a motion, and I believe you seconded the motion, and the motion is on the document before us. If you'd like to amend your motion or make amendments to this contract right now, we can approve it right now. That's our choice. Otherwise, we can delay this, or you can give us the right to do it as staff, myself and Catherine, to make changes this next week.
I think that's fine.
Scratch. What do you?
You feel okay with that, Lee?
Okay, scratching this piece here and let it. Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, I suggesting
Give us
that
some
Catherine and
flexibility.
Dean and Devin make a determination whether or not.
Provided we make sure the building is
Covered.
continuously and
yeah.
properly insured.
Yeah. I guess my point is I don't want to delay it for this, just that it's clarified.
And I'm fine with that as the seconder, based on the fact that we told them we didn't outline that as one of their items.
We do have insurance on the building.
Yes.
Yes. And is that okay with you? Okay. And do you have the motion then as we're modifying it?
Make sure that we have coverage on the building.
Continuously and properly insured.
Point of clarification, are we voting to approve this tonight?
Yes.
We're voting to approve
With
it,
those
subject to our ability to make that change.
Okay.
And Scott made the motion, so.
Okay, that's what I thought. I didn't think I did.
I was willing to let him sit on the hook.
You have the motion. Is that amendment okay?
Yes,
with
that
you?
amendment is fine. Thank you.
All right, I believe we're ready. Any further discussion, questions, comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Thank you, too. And next item on the parks agenda is, I believe, the yoga sessions in Lakefront Park. To approve the request of Inspiring Actions for yoga sessions, you have an issue sheet. The committee recommendation is to approve Inspiring Actions Yoga Studio and Wellness Center to hold a yoga class in Lakefront Park the second Sunday of each month. Do we have a representative? Yoga classes? No. All right. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there questions for Chairman Casanova on this one, or do you have any comments to make on this? Seems pretty routine.
Pretty routine. They want to use it. There's no charges. There's no fees.
May I question, because that relates to one of the two questions I was going to ask. This talks about raising money for the St. Croix Animal Friends. Now, I'm assuming that is in the nature of a free will donation?
Yes. That's
okay,
what I've
there
been
is
told.
no charge to use the park area.
Exactly.
And they're talking about the band shell specifically. I'm confused because in the issue sheet it says a small boombox will be used to play music and be operated on batteries. In their email, they ask for to use the electric power available at the band shell, which I assume would be for the boombox. I don't know what else it would be for.
Neither do I. But what you told Debbie now is that it's going to be, as it shows up on the sheet, that they're going to be using just a battery-powered boombox to do it.
Good, thanks, Pat. Because my motion does relate to this issue sheet and no electricity, battery-operated boombox.
Okay. Yep, go ahead.
So do we know where in the park this is going to take place? Is it in the band shell or?
Yes, it is in the band shell.
There's no conflicts with any other scheduled events during the summer?
No.
Okay.
Okay. With that, then, will you make it clear to our applicants here what we're approving, that it's the batteries, not the electricity? And Alan?
Do we have an insurance requirement? I mean, we do for everyone else that uses the park.
Huh.
They're not renting it, but
they've got the karma going for them.
Is our insurance?
Catherine.
What are the park department rules to require insurance?
Not that I'm aware of. For normal, a group using it
for
facilities for a family reunion, that type of thing, we wouldn't require.
For an event?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I mean, I would say treat them just like you would under any of the existing park rules.
All right. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries for approval of their request. Number 4, review proposal for Prospect Park Earthwork Project. There's an issue sheet on this. The committee recommendation is to approve Zappa Brothers to perform the layout, staking, and grading of the south portion of Prospect Park in the amount of $14,180, funding to come from the 2007 capital bond. I assume then this will have to be contingent on that bonding.
Last year's bond.
This is last year's bonding, so we've already bonded this. So this is a little bit of carryover, and then I believe there's a request for another $50,000 in this year's bond request right now for 2008 bonding for
correct
further
for additional work in the park.
Okay, so
move for approval.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion, Mr. Morissette?
No.
No.
I do have one question. Pat, I was at the park board meeting when this was discussed, and a gentleman brought up what I thought was a pretty reasonable idea. That is, it's going to be, Zappa Brothers is going to prepare the soil or prepare the ground to be seeded. They're not actually doing that work, putting on topsoil and seeding. And this gentleman, a member of your park board, suggested that we wait until next year because there will be a certain amount of settling, and that's the time to put on the topsoil after the depression has already, the ground has been depressed a bit, so that we don't put it on this year and then watch while it all sinks a little bit. What do you think of that?
This is the same way we did it when we did Grandview, and we've done other city parks in this same fashion of spreading it, and it's been, to my understanding, Gary's feeling that isn't an issue and that we should go ahead and do it.
Okay.
So we don't have a giant mud hole for the neighbors and kids and people out there.
Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The proposal for Prospect Park earthwork is approved. Moving on, unfinished business. We have election of the Common Council President. I would like to give you a couple of general comments that I have and then turn it over to the pleasure of the council. It takes 4 votes to elect the president. You may use a paper secret ballot if you wish. That'll be up to you, and I presume we need a motion from someone to do that. When we postponed this item, we had 2 nominations on the floor, and then we had voted. The other item, Pat, was not noticed on our agenda, and so we can't take that up tonight. Is that what you wanted?
Concerts in the park.
That was approved.
Concerts we did on consent. We had it.
Silo.
The white cap.
I had an issue sheet on the silo in my book. Probably you all did. It's not on the agenda. We're going to have to take that up at a future meeting. And I was saying that where things stood, we had 2 nominations. We had a motion and approved a motion to close nominations, and at that point we postponed this item. At this point, we can vote on those nominees next. The floor will be open. Anyone who voted to close nominations could vote to reopen nominations. The floor is open at your pleasure.
Mr. Mayor, I'll suggest that we start from the beginning because we have a council member here who was not present last time, who I think should get in on the ground floor.
I'll take that as a motion to reopen nominations. Is there a second? And this is going to have to come from someone who considered the item the last time and voted in favor of it, I believe, probably.
Voted in favor of
closing nominations, which was all of you who were here. So we have a second. All in favor of reopening nominations, say aye.
Aye.
Floor is open to nominations. We currently have 2 members nominated. The 2 are Lee Weiland and Randy Morissette. Are there any other nominations? The floor is open to a motion here. We've got the item open. If you're wanting to nominate more people, change nominations around, suggest that we move to voting and do it by paper ballot, it's in your court.
Point of clarification.
Yes.
I thought we just voted to wipe the slate clean.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we're starting
Maybe I
from...
misunderstood.
Yeah,
Okay.
we are starting from square one.
I misunderstood what your motion was. Okay. Would you like me to call for nominations then? Okay.
You have the chair.
Nominations are open for council president. Are there any nominations? Are there any nominations? Are there any nominations? I find this an interesting circumstance.
I'd like to nominate Randy Morissette.
Mr. Morissette has been nominated. Are there any other nominations?
Move that nominations be closed.
We have a motion that nominations be closed. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no.
Mr.
Congratulations, Randy. You're elected council president.
Thank you.
If you want it. Next item on our agenda is update on projects. Who's up? Chuck, you want to go first?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. First off, I'd like to start off with the lakefront wall project. We did have a meeting last week out there, and the water hasn't quite crested yet, and so realistically the contractor cannot get in there until the water subsides and the area sufficiently dries out. They did 2 weeks ago try to install the light pole bases, and even that, the ground was too saturated to do that. So I'm thinking that the contractor's a few weeks out from mobilizing, probably mid-May, to finish up the lakefront wall project. In regards to the lakefront park, there's also phase 3 improvements, and it's my understanding that, that we've been directed to proceed with and present a concept plan at the May 6th Parks Committee meeting. And then from there, it'll go to council on the 19th. Triple left turn lane, we also met on that on Friday to talk about the remaining work out there. If you recall, essentially the major item that needs to be installed is the sign bridge. So that way, once that is installed, all three left turn lanes can be opened. And that's probably a week and a half out before they'll begin that work, working with staff and the contractor on that. And also I'll be talking with other staff members as well, just to kind of get the word out there and how we best do that through a press release possibly, as well as information for the website and such. Other than that, things are starting to get nice, and there's been several contractors in town cleaning up old projects, addressing work orders and such to get projects like the Nye Aldrich Street project buttoned up and finalized.
Okay, thank you, Chuck. Any questions?
I've got a question on Nye and Aldrich. I've had a few constituents come up. District 2 is that, or 3? Either way, I think it would be prudent for you to put in, or at least request that the contractor go door to door and ask if they're satisfied with the finished product up there. They're having concerns with their sod. It's not leveled in their grass. It's one height different each and every way you go down that street. I'd strongly suggest that you contact everybody up there and ask if they're okay with what's been done.
Okay, noted.
Any other questions for Chuck? I'd like to make a couple comments about the lakefront project, that while we all want to see it get done as soon as possible, we want to see it get done right. It is our showpiece, and we are going to continue to make our best efforts to make it be the best place it can be. You know, we've had enough egg on our face. It's time to start putting our best foot forward on it. The Phase 3 improvements that are now being discussed, I wish had been discussed at an earlier phase, so that we had that all done and ready to go. As soon as the weather's right, we were ready to go out to bids and specs. I'm going to be pushing for this to get done. I asked if it could be done in time for Booster Days and was told there's no way that that landscaping and all that updating can be done by then, that from where we are right now in the schedule to approve concept plans for that May 6th, that we won't be awarding a contract till June 16th with that final construction happening July 7th, starting July 7th. All I can say is that I hope in the future that when it's off-season, that we do our off-season prep work, get it done, so that when it's construction season, we can get in there and get going with it right away. Any other questions on the project update? Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you.
We're ready to move on to old business. I don't believe there's any old business. New business. Consider creating an ad hoc committee to review the land proposal from West Wisconsin Land Trust, Inc. I believe, Alan, this came from a request that you had to put this item on a future agenda, and I question whether we need to create an ad hoc committee or whether we could just authorize the Finance Committee to investigate this. The Finance Committee would generally deal with land acquisition were it to take place.
I think that's totally appropriate.
The floor is open to a motion.
I will so move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Number B, under new business, a resolution authorizing Ehlers and Associates, Inc. to solicit bids for $2.3 million in general obligation promissory notes to finance our 2008 capital improvement projects. This would be Resolution 5-08. Probably first reading.
Move for first reading, then.
Move for first reading. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Do we need to do first, or can we proceed and just approve it?
I believe Betty was thinking that this would be a first reading. I have some suggested changes to the bonding list. There may be some others. We talked about some tonight, and that would be one rationale for bringing this back again for a second. Comments, Betty?
We had some issues to discuss, which was one of them is Phase 3 of the lakefront. When I started putting together this with Sean, I had upped the bond issue, as you can tell. It's a little bit higher than what we had originally talked about. It's easier to drop it back than it is to raise it. So we were going to take that approach with the council and discuss some possible changes to the original listing. I do have a sheet of paper explaining what the bond issue would be if we were to issue at what we adopted the capital outlay at, which would be about $2,035,000. The reason that it is higher than what we talked about, we have about $1.4 million that we're looking in capital purchasing. The other $500,000 is coming from a partial payment on the loan that we have for the land that we purchased for Prospect Park. That bond, or that short-term note, actually comes due April of next year. By addressing it with paying part of it right now, relieves the tax levy for next year so that we can achieve what the council would like to achieve with the mill rate that they've been looking at in the past. So that's how it got to the $2.35 million. I have a sheet on that if you're interested in that. The reason it got up to a little bit higher is at the time I was trying to put the funding together for Lakefront Park. I was thinking $200,000. I threw $200,000 into the bond issue, although we already had $100,000 included. So that was my error on that point, because I don't think we really were looking at adding $200,000 to cover the park at that point. So if we have a first reading tonight, I'd like to get council's decisions on the capital outlay so that we can amend the budget, and at our next meeting do the second reading on this. It's going to make it tight. We're still going to plan on selling the bonds May 19th, I believe, and everything should go as it was. We'll have the money the first week in June.
Yes.
Mayor, I have a question. You mentioned that you have some either amendments or changes. Would that change the amount of the bonding from $2.3 million?
My suggestion, and I provided each of you a list on the table tonight of some proposed changes, was to cut about 10% out of the original proposal of $1.46 million in bonding for capital outlays to be bonded for 2008, and I went through that with a sharpened pencil, and don't laugh, that's what I call it, sharpened pencil, and I found about 10%. Now that's all subject to council's discretion. Some of those you've already chosen to add back in tonight. And so it'll be difficult to reach that number, but there are definitely some numbers in here that I think there will be a broad consensus that we can take out of that original list.
The reason for my question is that if you anticipate a change from $2.3 million, then there's no point in having a first reading of this resolution, because this resolution is for $2.3 million. And if we're going to have a different resolution for a different amount, then we should deal with that and suspend the rules at that time.
Well, it's a fairly simple thing to make a resolution that we would issue GO bonds not to exceed $2.3 million, and it's subject to going down. I don't think any taxpayer would complain if we decide to borrow less money for the next 10 years than what we originally said that we would.
That is my point, sir. This is not a resolution for a bond not to exceed 2.3. This is a resolution for a bond for 2.3 million. And if you want to reduce that, and I'm not arguing with you on that, but then there is no point in having a first reading on this resolution.
Well, we don't often do first readings because it's expeditious to suspend those rules and do it all in one night. But part of the reason to have a first reading and wait for 2 weeks is to allow the public to become aware of the issue, to allow the council members to have time to decide what to do with the specific issue. And it doesn't necessarily mean that what you read the first time is what that will be enacted the second time. Instead, you can make an amendment and then suspend the rules the second time, and
yes, we can suspend the rules.
The public's interest will be quite well served by that. I don't think we're really ready to do the final issue right now tonight.
No, I'm not asking us to do that.
So do we have a motion yet on this?
Yes.
Yeah.
We have a motion and a second. If you'd like to amend it, we're in discussion. Anyone else want to discuss the motion that's on the table? Would you like to amend it? If not, I think we're ready to vote on that motion.
Yeah, I'll let it stand.
Let it stand. All in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed say no. Okay, so we've had first reading of that resolution 5.08, $2.3 million. Next item on the agenda is update from our Facilities Needs Ad Hoc Committee from Lee Weiland. Lee?
Yeah, I was just going to give everybody an idea of kind of what's going on with the committee. We've met twice now. First time I laid out the direction of what kind of information we're going to get in. The second meeting we're working. We'll be meeting this Thursday at 6 p.m. That notice should go out. Okay. Basically, what I laid out as the direction is we had a lot of ideas on the table, a lot of ideas for, well, we could do this building or buy this building or do this or do this. A lot of solutions were coming forward, and what we needed to do was step back and say, what are our problems? And so what the chiefs and myself have met, and we talked through the details of what problems we're trying to solve throughout the departments, and they've done an excellent job of bringing forward some statistics. I'm an engineer by trade, so I have to have statistics, information about everything from call volumes to current square footage to places where we know that we're double stacked with facilities, where our facilities are physically too small today. Looking at growth in call volumes, growth in number of citizens in the community, number of citizens served throughout the many areas. Like we serve not only the city, the residents of the city, but we also serve in the police department and the fire department, a little larger area. So the chiefs have brought together some terrific information, which we're now going through the data analysis to look at what are our trends, what have been our trends, can we really understand where we need to be facility-wise in 5 years and in 10 years. So when we make this decision and we come up with these interim solutions that maybe this would work or maybe this would work, we have some statistics. So this Thursday we'll be reviewing all that statistical information, trying to make some projections. It's going to be, not a formal meeting, it's a brainstorming meeting to say this is what we see, this is what we understand of the information that's there. And so come down at 6 on Thursday and we'll go through looking at what all the guys have brought together, and we'll do some trend analysis and figure out where are we today, where should we be today, and what do we do next. So that's our direction. And then our intention is then to look at pros and cons of a number of different options. After we get to a certain point, we'll probably have to come back to the council to say, okay, we're ready to take the next step and actually have someone come in and do some financial analysis on different options. So we're going to get to pros and cons of sizes and things, but we'll be back for that next step, and probably, I'm guessing probably in the next 3 to 4 weeks, we'll be ready to, first part of June, be able to talk about that.
Thank you. I would like to say that at our organizational meeting, while I didn't formally extend the ad hoc committee into this, I'd like to do that now. I've talked with Lee. We talked about a 6 to 8 week time frame. I'm going to ask that by June 12th that we have a report and sort of wrap up the activities of that committee so that the report can be on the agenda for the Monday night meeting the week following, if that's possible. If that's not going to work, let us know and we'll work with it. That's kind of what I'm thinking, so that everybody knows how long is this going on, staff knows how long is it going on, till mid-June. And then I hope that we're done. And we have some big decisions to make as we go into considering budget for next year, as we go into the fall. We've got some work to do this summer. And so with that, are there questions for Lee? Floor is open. Questions, comments? Thank you, Lee.
Okay, thank you.
Next item. Okay, concept approval to consider accepting an application for a taxi cab service license. Madam Clerk asked for this to be put on the agenda. Would you like to go over the issue in brief?
Well, the gentleman is here. Ty Anderson submitted an application to the clerk's office to conceptually approve another taxi cab service in the city of Hudson. According to the ordinance, it needs to come to council for them to set a public hearing date. And that's where we're at. Mr. Anderson could answer questions.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not sure it's overkill, but I thought we'd come down and see if I can get a concept approval. The last time there was a taxi service based in Hudson was back in the 60s. I work for a taxi based in Lakeland, and they're also called Hudson Taxi, but they have Minnesota license plates. So before we spend the money buying vehicles and getting everything metered out, looking for concept approval.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
The ordinance doesn't really provide a procedure for concept approval. It provides that the council shall set a public hearing, and I think it's premature for the city to give, or the council to give, a concept approval where it doesn't exist, and there's really no basis for the council to give that until after the public hearing when it would decide on the application. And I don't think you should take any, you just need to wait for the public hearing and then council action. You can't rely on any concept approval anyway, so I really don't think that's an appropriate step for the council to take.
That's understood. I have a financer that,
Hugh has the goal, makes the rules, so he said, I want concept approval first, so.
No, I am advising the council not to give it. I mean,
Understood.
because our ordinance doesn't provide for that.
I understand.
And you cannot rely on that.
All right. And, I agree with that. I put this on the agenda a little bit against my better judgment, and I probably shouldn't have. I would make a couple of comments, and maybe just for information gathering. Is it the case that we have no licensed taxi services right now?
We do have one license.
We do have one.
Service, yes.
Okay. And I was a little surprised to see exactly how much of our code is taken up regulating taxis. And I question if that's the reason we don't have more taxis based here. Recently, I overheard a friend of mine say that he had a call and late, and his daughter, who was 27 years old, called him and wanted to ride home from Dick's because couldn't get a taxi and was calling Dad for a ride, which was a very responsible thing to do. I think that since the 70s, our concept of when it's appropriate to drive and when it's appropriate to call for a taxi have changed quite a bit. And if you look at the history of this ordinance, it may be time for us to totally relook this. There are parts in here that I looked at it and thought, well, we should dust this off, send this through our process. That doesn't have to slow you down from seeking approval, but really the thing to do is put your $100 out there in the application, and we'll run it through the process. That's the way the code stands right now, and we would definitely give you a fair hearing on it. So,
thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I believe that takes us to communications and recommendations of the mayor, of which I have several. First, I'd like to recognize our city clerk. Nancy Kurjan has received the prestigious designation of Wisconsin's Certified Municipal Clerk from the Municipal Clerks Association of Wisconsin. This designation comes only after completing many hours of training and achieving years of experience related to your municipality's business. Shows that Nancy has a dedication to the citizens of the municipality as well as to the pursuit of lifelong learning. So let me extend my thank you to Nancy, and let's recognize Nancy for her achievement. Tomorrow is Earth Day, and I'd like to acknowledge the following volunteers and organizations that will be taking part in cleanup activities in various areas throughout the city during Earth Week. We encourage groups, individuals to volunteer, and anyone who's interested in helping out can contact the Public Works Department or the Parks Department for information. The numbers are 386-4767 or 376-4774.
Could be 386-477.
The second one's a typo, 386-4774. And the participants that I'd like to recognize are Target Store, Starbucks, Community Action, the Foreign Exchange Program, Community Service, and the Sailboat Moorers. That's probably not an all-inclusive list. I put before the council a couple of memos. One is in regard to the police canine unit. We've had a canine unit in the past. I'd like to suggest that that's a program that we look at restarting. There is a waiting list involved in doing that, and the waiting list may be as long as a year or more if we wait to get a dog acquired and trained through the St. Paul Police Department. I think they're the best in our area. They're probably among the best in the nation, and we had a good experience with them before. The funding for this will need to be looked at within the budget. There is still some money left in that account, left from when the program was closed down, of about $4,000. It's key that we select the right handler, and so I'd ask that public safety, if you're interested in this, that you begin the process of reviewing things like job description, things like what the financial arrangements would be with a handler, and Chief Jensen's got a rough budget idea. I wish you'd dust that off and bring it to your committee and consider that for future. I think it can really help with drug interdiction efforts, law enforcement in the area of drugs is an area of big concern, and having a dog that's trained to detect the presence of illegal drugs can both help during the execution of search warrants, but also when we do find illegal substances, there's the opportunity to sometimes seize things like vehicles. In the past, this program was essentially self-supporting for a number of years when it was operating well, and it can do better than that. I mean, it's possible for an investment of $10,000 a year to yield you much more than that if it really runs effectively. I've also suggested to you, let me see what I've got. I gave you a capital outlay budget with some changes that I suggested. Among them are that the digital cameras that was suggested be budgeted for $36,000. I suggested that we postpone that to a future year, and instead we spend the money on the equipment upgrades that you approved tonight. That would be a lesser amount of $22,000. I suggested that in the area of public works and the Parks Department that we continue to seek ways that they work together. There was a decision to have them work together over the winter for snow plowing. That was done by memo from the mayor and with the council approval. I believe it ran through the end of March, if I'm not mistaken, and so that joint operating has now come to an end. I'm going to be looking at that and discussing that, and I'd like the Public Works and the parks to give me input on that, whether we should continue that during other parts of the year. And so before we buy more mowing equipment, I think we should really look at that. The Lakefront Park Phase 3 project was originally on your bonding list for $100,000. The recommendation coming out from staff is for more picnic tables, more landscaping, more of everything, and they're recommending that we spend more like $222,000 on it. What I've put before you is that we take that up to about $175,000 and see if we can't do it for that, and that'd be my recommendation. In the area of the City Hall boiler, I'm going to suggest that we delay that. I'm establishing an energy task force. Do you have one of those memos? One of you? I don't have that. Let me see that. An energy task force be established. In this time of rapidly rising energy costs, we need to look for ways to increase our energy efficiency. I'd like to have Devin Willey, the city administrator, also Betty as the finance officer, Tom Zuley representing Parks and Public Works, and then if you could designate, I'd like the chairman of Public Works and the chairman of Public Safety to designate someone each to serve on this. What I'd like to see happen first is an energy audit, get on one page where we can look at our annual energy consumption, not just by dollars, but in the actual units. For example, gallons of gasoline, gallons of diesel fuel, kilowatts of electricity, so that we can start to look at citywide, where are we consuming energy? What can we do in the way of innovative technologies, in the way of adding insulation? In the case of a boiler replacement, we should be looking at, are there alternatives? Is there anything new or different? And then make that an annual part of our budgeting to look at the ways to reduce our energy consumption. I met with a representative of the governor's Energy Independence Task Force. There are some grant monies available. It might require some things on our part, but I'm going to pursue grants for this also. And I'm going to ask that we utilize both the expertise of our city engineer firm and the free services of Xcel Energy to evaluate our buildings for ways that we might be able to reduce energy consumption. And I'd like to set a goal for the city that we reduce our per capita energy consumption by all phases of city government by 10% in the 2 years. That might be ambitious, but that would be a goal that I'd like to set for you. And I already mentioned LED lighting as a pet. I think that we've seen how well it works with the street lights and, the signal lights, and I'd like to investigate that for other lighting as the technology becomes available. What else did I give you? I thought I had one more. Oh, just general. I have some general comments and goals for the city, and it's in the area of kind of three areas. One is policy, and you have a copy of that. I've got so much paper here I can't find my own stuff. Major policy initiatives. You've already seen what I suggested for the police department, and I thank you for your support for that we can add one new officer right away, and I think that's important that we do that. I've asked that we increase the number of casual call officers that we have trained and available and equipped, and try to maintain that between 6 and 10. That's something that we can do within our current budget, and when we can't, Marty will tell us when we can't, and we'll have to look for more funding to do that. The technology and equipment is key in the training programs. I'd like us to have the best trained and best equipped police department in the area. I think that's something we can do. We have a good department already. We can make it even better. For the parks, we've already talked about Prospect Park. I'd like to point out that was purchased for $1 million, and we bonded it or paid for it in a short-term loan. There was the assumption that we were going to apply for a grant. When I dug into this, it turns out that the grant hasn't been applied for and that we haven't received it. I would like us to make our best efforts to reach the deadline for this year for that grant, which was originally, at the time of the purchase, we thought we might be able to get half the purchase price, or $500,000 for it. Several of you probably thought that was happening. No action has happened towards that. Today we got the information that it requires 2 appraisals and submission of the application by May 1st. I'm not certain that can happen. We're going to make our best efforts to do it, and I hope that you'll support me in that. If not, we need to still pursue that for next year. I think in general, I'd like to say that it is not good policy to make purchase decisions based on a grant that might happen or might appear. That we should pursue the grants first and then come and ask for the city funding, and I would put in that category the public philanthropy that's expected for a potential NMC library purchase, that if we're going to rely on public philanthropy or grants, before we commit public funds, it would be best practice for us to have a real hard number of what we might be able to expect in private philanthropy and grants. And finally, there are some administrative initiatives that I've been working on. I mentioned earlier tonight the procurement policy is something that was adopted in the year 2000. I'm going to bring to the Finance Committee some suggestions to update the procurement policy. I think we need to stick to it. As we looked at claims tonight, for example, there was one department that bought furniture of a couple of $1,000s. I'd like to see whether bids were solicited on that and what the process is, and I just use that as an example. There are much bigger items than that, but we'll be looking at that. I've got a media relations policy that I'm going to discuss with department heads at the meeting on Wednesday of this week, at the department head meeting. And I think that we should have a more formalized policy for how we handle our contacts with media and press. My general concept there is that those types of inquiries would be broken down into 3 categories. 1, things that are perfectly routine. What time is the meeting? What is the procedure for this? How do you get a dog license? 2, non-routine things, incident-related things, there's a water main break, there's a bomb threat or something, and we'll specify who will be our point person to answer those questions. And then 3, things that are policy, that are undecided, that are unfunded, that are currently before the council, and who should be answering press questions. That's kind of my general concept. I'll be talking with the department heads and instituting that. And with that, I'd just like to give you some timelines for those things. The procurement policy, I hope that by next month we can be working on that. The energy task force, I'd ask that mid-June, June 12th, and I think we can do that, have a report back on that, and have completed the energy audit. And then the facility needs study, already mentioned, about the same time frame, June 12th. With that completes communications from the mayor. I'd like to thank you all for bearing with me tonight. By my calculation, Mayor Bro has chaired approximately the last 350 meetings of this council, and he does it without batting an eye. For me, it's still a little bit more work. Reports of city officials, boards, and commissions. The quarterly reports were put on file. Betty's here with us, and one of the reports was hers. And while it's already been approved, I guess I'd like to go back and offer any of you to ask her questions. Are there any questions for her on her report? No questions.
Yeah, I do. I have some questions. Again, we were talking, Betty, the EMT department.
Yes.
Now, what did I do with that?
You want my copy?
I've got it here. One of the questions I had was if we were to go forward on that, and I think you brought some of that forward to us, but they'd be over budget by about $230,000 if we continued on.
In their expenditures, he's pretty much right on his labor, his supplies, those type of expenditures. What's really hard hit in that right now is for the same period of time, the write-offs have gone up for 3 months, $200,000. His write-offs are almost the same as his revenues are for the first quarter. Now, granted, we have an accounts receivable at the end of the year, and a lot of those write-offs pertain to that accounts receivable. But I think it's just kind of a economic thing right now that I think we're going to see more write-offs. These write-offs are not like they're going away and never to be collected. We use the state program to collect, and we also tag credit. So in those senses, we will collect it eventually, but I think the write-offs are what's killing the ambulance department right now. As of this point, they seem to be on for their labor and their supplies.
My question is there a policy for when these are written off? I know that at one point we talked about Medicare and Medicaid, and there's a lot of people on Medicare that have a supplement that would help pay for maybe that Medicare doesn't pay for the ambulance run. And I know the Medicaid is a fixed number and there's nothing we can do about it. But when we start charging, what was it, $300,000?
$300,000 already, yes.
That's a big number, folks.
It's $100,000 a month. Yeah.
Yep.
Can I address part of this?
Yeah.
We actually have an organization that we send, I remember the name of the organization, that we send our collections to. That collection company then actually can go in and leverage tax returns. They're the only company that we've now been able to do that with. So whatever is feasibly and possibly collectible, they collect it.
Can we levy against property? To like a water bill or a...
No. It's legally you can't. Legally you can't. No.
Well, I guess my point is that I was trying to make is that if we're sitting at $300,000 in the first 3 months of charge-offs, there's going to be a day of reckoning coming pretty quick here that we need to address this issue somehow, some way, because I don't think we have those kind of funds sitting in our budget to absorb that, as far as I'm concerned. So,
one thing I don't understand about that number is that we did raise rates this year per capita, and from this time, and I don't have it right in front of me, this time last year versus this time this year, were the write-offs the same? Are you aware, Betty?
No, the write-offs are a lot larger this time. $200,000 more than last time.
Yeah. If I could, I'd like to suggest this. I think it is an item of interest, and I'd like to put it on a future agenda. I think it probably should go to Finance Committee. I'd like to have a report, and I'll work with staff on this, where we can look at where we're at in some detail and some options for what we might be able to do, and bring that to Finance Committee if that's all right with you.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll also follow up. There was a question earlier, exactly the dotted line, not dotted line between the city and EMS, and who has the authority to approve what. And Catherine said she believes 2-3 years ago she did some type of research on that, so she'll get that for us and get that, so we know exactly who can do what with that.
I said 63%. Yeah.
I think with that, are there any other questions for Betty? Sorry to put you on the spot, Betty, but I knew there were some questions about that part. Let's move on. We still have the claims. I believe at this point we're ready to approve the claims. Could you lead me through that here?
Basically, the total claims are in the amount of $550,574.72, and detail is available in the clerk's office.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, no. Is that not a roll call vote?
Yes. That's right. It is a roll call.
Morset?
Yes.
O'Malley?
Yes.
Wyland?
Yes.
Virgil?
Yes.
Bernard?
Yes.
Roll call.
Yes.
Motion passes and the claims are approved. Next item is communications and items for future agendas. Any alderperson?
I have one. The Safety Committee meeting scheduled for May 7th is going to be held May 14th at 8 a.m.
Thank you. Any other items?
I have one. It's been, since our last full council meeting, the Park Board has had 2 meetings, and we have received no minutes of those meetings. I'd like to direct Devin to mention that, so that the council does get minutes of the committee meetings.
All right.
Any other items? City Attorney? Oh, was there one?
Nope.
No? Yes.
Mayor, I just would like to say that because I have new Finance Committee and because we have new members, I have put an audit in front of everybody so they could read this when they really want exciting reads. And so this is the 2006. I'm in the middle right now of the 2007. We should have that by the end of June. But this will be a good place to start. A lot of read in there. So.
You just don't want us asking questions for a long time.
City Attorney? City Administrator?
I have met with 2 different consultants regarding the health insurance, individuals that will take us through the entire process. I met with one last week, one this morning. Both of them will be submitting proposals. What I've asked both of them to do is they start out by meeting with the City Council, weighing out what they can do, what they can't do, what the expectation should be, carry it through. I anticipate I'll have some proposals in the next couple of weeks. Staff, I need to talk to Dean about this, but staff will go through those proposals and we'll come back with a recommendation. I think it'll be a worthwhile expenditure to have someone in here. Both of them are independent, if you will, from insurance companies, so there won't be any issues as to, they work for this one or this one. So as we get the more information in, I'll bring that forward. So I would hope by June 1st we would have something in place to get the process started. For those of you that are new to the council, we have an October 1st deadline to notify the state if we're going to pull out of their plan. And they're aware of this. Both of these individuals have worked with municipalities that have. Some have. They both made it very clear that they may come back with a recommendation that for the city of Hudson, believe it or not, the state might be their best plan, but that's what the process will take place. But we do have to notify the state by October 1st. They are aware of that. They will set their timetable up accordingly. So,
thank you. With that, our meeting is ready to be adjourned. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.
Oh.